All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you after our Rams Week 4 loss to the Chicago Bears, 18 to 24 in Chicago, in a game that was infuriating, I know, for everybody to watch. I had the distinct displeasure of being at the game. I was at Soldier Field, I was in Chicago, and I had to witness the loss in person, which was excruciatingly painful, especially because I live in Chicago and I'm surrounded by Bears fans every day of my life. So I had to take a big L this week personally. But before we get into this, Jake, I do want to say, because I am talking about being at the game, and I had the pleasure, on a positive note, of meeting so many of our listeners this past weekend who made the trek to Chicago from wherever they were from to watch the game. And it was very, very fun. It was the highlight of the weekend because the game obviously was not. And I got to meet so many new friends who I met, particularly at a get together on Saturday night at this place called the Game Room on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. There was a massive Rams meetup. And so many awesome Rams fans were there. So many of them came up to me and told me that they listened to Downtown Rams, and my heart grew 3 sizes. It's always nice to hear that. And I got to finally put some faces to names because I know on social media a lot of people are private with their identities. So I got to kind of meet some people who I interact with a lot and who I know listen to the show. We had Rams World Order was there, and everyone in that group was so awesome. I got to chat with those guys for a bit. Rams Republic was there. I got to meet some new friends there. And yeah, just so many awesome people. So I know a lot of you are listening who I hung out with Saturday night and at the game. So I just wanted to say hi. I wanted to say thank you for making my weekend. I'm glad that in the midst of a Rams loss, so many of us got to come together and have fun for a night and before the game, because the game certainly wasn't fun, and we're going to talk about that now. But yeah, and also shout out to a lot of the Rams parents who made the trip, Jake. I know I talked to you about this, and our listeners will know this, but particularly, I got to meet Kyren Williams' mom at the game, and she was very, very kind. And I told her obviously about how I'm from St. Louis and I'm a Notre Dame fan, and how, I'm a big fan of Kyren because of it. And she was so gracious and offered to take a picture. So I got to take a picture with her. And that was very, very cool. Those of you who know me and my Kyren Williams fan, how I'm a big fan since his college days. And then also I got to meet Joshua Carty's dad. Was awesome. I talked to him for a really long time. We were searching for Ubers together because the rideshare situation, not like an Uber together, but like he was getting an Uber and I was getting a different Uber. Just clarifying that. But the rideshare situation at Soldier Field is so chaotic that we were like trying to figure it out together, and that was really
Oh
funny.
boy.
And then I met and hung out with Akello's dad, Lucky, who you know. I got
I
to
know him
meet him
very
and chat with
well.
him. And yeah, there was a ton of Rams parents at this game in particular who I saw after the game. It was like a family affair at Soldier Field. If only the Rams could
That's
have
awesome.
got, yeah, if only the Rams could have gotten the win, then it would have been maybe a more joyous of occasion. But I just wanted to throw that out there and say thank you to everyone who hung out this weekend. And I met so many amazing people who just really made it a really special weekend, regardless of the score on Sunday. But Jake, we do have to talk about the score on Sunday. The 18 to 24 loss. It was a game, Jake, that you and I both thought we were going to win. I think most people thought we were going to win this game within the Rams community, I should say. And it's a game that I think we should have won. And I think you feel the same way. I really genuinely believe that. I believe that the Rams should have and could have won that game if it wasn't for a few very preventable things that we're going to talk about, and I think that makes it a little bit more infuriating. But Jake, let's start with you. Give us a brief summary of your thoughts on this Rams Bears matchup from this past Sunday.
I never watch all 22 twice in a row before I do my watch party on my Kick channel mid week, but I watched it twice, and it's Tuesday, Alexis. I'm a psycho. I'm aware of this. I am so livid about this game. I don't understand how they lost. I know people keep posting in the comments section of my videos like they lost because Jared Verse can't sack anybody. They lost because they can't stop the run. They lost because the turnovers. They lost because the red zone. I'm aware of all that. But when you watch the game over, it doesn't make sense. You watch the flow of the game and you're like, the Rams should be up by 20 points at least. They had multiple upon multiple opportunities. They drove down the field at will. I wasn't really impressed by this Bears team at all. The one thing that I thought the Bears really impressed me with, one thing, and this is a big thing, the red zone defense. But Caleb Williams, very similarly to his first ever start in the NFL, was carried by his defense. He was pathetic. This was an awful performance from Caleb Williams. I understand he's a rookie. I get that. But you have DeAndre Swift, who had to carry the team on his back because they had Cole Kmet, they had DJ Moore, they had Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. I mean, we're talking about a quarterback here who's got more weapons his rookie year than I've ever seen anybody have. And he finished with 157 passing yards, 72 of which came from Swift, which, by the way, was on 7 receptions, pretty much dump offs, right? I understand rookie quarterback. I still don't know. And there's no bitterness here. I have nothing against Caleb. He played for a team that I actively root for in USC. But the reality is, I still to this day don't know why they traded away Justin Fields. I don't get it. And watching this game just infuriated me because when you have a team that gets the pressure that this Rams team is getting, it's insane. No Aaron Donald, and I'm not going to say no problem. We're not going in that direction there. But I need you guys to understand something, okay? Because I think a lot of people are getting caught up in the missed sacks and all that. And I get the frustration. I do, Alexis. But what we're seeing is sheer dominance up front. And that's what's really frustrating to me, is that the Rams shouldn't be 1-3 with an offense that continues to move the ball at will on defenses. At will. Stafford looks great. Tutu Atwell looks great. Jordan Whittington. There's nobody in the NFL at wide receiver that's separating as much as Jordan Whittington per route run. So here's the thing, okay? This team their pressure rate is number 1 in the NFL. They barely blitz, for the record. So this stuff is natural. They're not finding creative ways. These guys are just kicking ass up front. And yet they're now 1-3. So that is a frustrating thing. Then again, being able to move the ball at will. But Alexis, the thing that frustrates me the most is the thing that frustrates you the most. Kyren Williams took the ball 19 times and had 94 yards. That's 4.9 yards per carry and a touchdown. And that's it. That's all he had. Because he could have had 30 carries in this game, probably could have gone for 200 with the way he was running the football. And for whatever reason, he only got 19 in this game, in a close game, and a game that the Bears honestly could not stop the run. As great as their defense was in the red zone, they weren't great at any other point in the game. They weren't great in between the 20 and the 20. Okay, we need to be honest with ourselves there. Now, people will bring up the ending of the game and the pick 6. First off, that was helmet to helmet, 15 yards, would have extended the game. But to be honest with you, they didn't deserve it and never should have gotten to that point anyway, period. And the interception is Stafford trying to make something happen when there's really nothing there. The Bears knew they were on their toes. This is at the 5-yard line. You have to go 95 yards to win the game. This never should have ever gotten to that point. And so we can say all we want. It's Jared Verse's fault. It's Troy Reeder's fault. No, it's a collective effort. And I'm going to say this. I don't think the Rams are fully aware, at least enough, with the play calling on the defensive side of the ball and the scheming. I'm not seeing enough of it where they have, understood, okay, we don't have Aaron Donald anymore. We can't do things how we did them. They're still doing things how they did them last year. I do think that they need more help up front. At this point, I would be willing to get creative in the linebacker room, okay? Because I think when you look at the defensive line, they're kicking ass, great edge pressure, all that. The linebackers are not finishing. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be Jared Verse's fault when he chases Caleb Williams like 10 yards out of the pocket and now no one can finish because the linebackers can't get over there. That's not acceptable. So something has to change. And I said something had to change after the 49er game, but I understand they won the game. They're not trying to kill morale or anything. Well, now they lost this game, a game that was on their schedule circled as this is an easy win. This should be a win, no doubt about it. Get back on the high side. Now you're 2-2. You have a chance to, move to 3-2 going in the bye with a win at SoFi against the Packers. Now, this Packers game just became the everything game. They need this win. And so it just frustrates me because you have these guys that are playing. And I said, Troy Reeder, Christian Roseboom, tape, and just watching the game, they were fantastic in week 1. They looked great. But since then, they've disappointed me. And this game, their guys aren't getting off their blocks. Alexis, they gave up 11 of 11 targets for over 100 yards and a touchdown. So not only are they not helping in the run game, but now they're hurting in the receiving game. Where you look at, the touchdown to DJ Moore, we look at that as, that was a nice throw by Caleb Williams. One of the only good throws of the day. He had 5 passes beyond 10 yards. Only 1 completed, the touchdown. So as great as that throw was, any linebacker worth a cent would realize I need to get more depth on this. I need to pick this ball off. I need to get back to the ball. I need to turn around. Roseboom looks like he had good coverage on it, but Roseboom had an opportunity to pick this ball off. Doesn't get enough depth. Same thing as the throw over the middle, the 22-yarder to Kmet. Not enough depth. I believe that was Reeder. These guys have to get more depth in their dropbacks. That's the reality of it. If you're going to have these linebackers in coverage, they have to get more depth, and they're not doing that. Ernest Jones was not the best coverage linebacker, so that's not what they totally miss him in, but he was better than this. So this is where I'm at right now. I'm just kind of over this whole, we're just going to trot them out there. They're veterans. They have the presence. At this point, Alexis, I don't care how young, inexperienced an Omar Spates, a Jake Hummel, any of those guys are. I don't care if it sounds crazy, but I would rather try Quentin Lake at linebacker, try Omar Spates, would try Jake Hummel, than continue to do this. Because right now, this is the worst start of Sean McVay's career. They've never started 1-3 before. And this team could very well be 3-1. So it's really just inexcusable. Something has to change. You can't just go out there and ride the wave and be like, this is who we are. No, it's just not acceptable. So that's kind of where I'm at. In addition to that, I watched 9 snaps of Ahkello Witherspoon's that he played, and probably the most impactful, plays of the day for the defense came when Ahkello was on the field for those 9 snaps. I'm not saying, obviously there could be some coincidence there, but watching him, leaving him on an island, playing left corner, asking of him what they asked of him last year, and then only letting him play 9 snaps, that's another head scratcher. So this week, it's really simple, Alexis. They need to play Ahkello Witherspoon. I don't care if 27 is on the field or not. They need to play number 4 on the left side, and they need to try to get creative at linebacker. Everything else I like. They got pressure. Eventually, the game's going to slow down a little bit for Verse. But I'm not going to scold Verse here when he's second in the NFL in win rate, only behind Aiden Hutchinson, who might have, I think, at this point, 7 sacks in the first 4 games. That I'm just not going to do that. So a lot to like from this game. Don't get me wrong here. Like, Whittington looks like a dog, which I'm not surprised. And Atwell being featured. I love that. And Kyren got his legs under him in this one. Finally had some momentum. Finally had some blocking up front. At the same time, though, those nice things and everything, Josh Carty being 9 of 10 to start off his young career looking like a stud. But at the same time, they're now 1-3. And the good isn't going to be heard by people who want to just focus on the bad. And I can't blame you if you want to focus on the bad, because this team is way too talented. Injuries aside, I don't care. The team that they have on the field right now should at the very least be 2-2. This is unacceptable.
I'm totally on the same page. It's absolutely unacceptable. And, there's a lot, you touched on kind of a lot of the different reasons for this loss and why this is unacceptable. I think we should start let's start with the offense, because I think there's a lot of criticism, and I think rightfully so. I'm one of these people on the red zone play calling. The Rams' performance in the red zone, because as we've talked about, the Rams were doing well to get down the field. There were things that were working for them, particularly Kyren Williams. Listen, this was Kyren Williams' game. Once again, I think we've seen that other than number 9, Kyren Williams is the Rams offense. For better, I think. He is absolutely what is making it run right now. He is the number one guy. Like we talked about, 19 carries for 94 yards. He was averaging 4.9 yards a carry. He ended up getting the sole touchdown of the game, which I think is something that is becoming, familiar when we talk about Kyren Williams. But then you look at Tutu Atwell, 4 receptions, 82 yards. Jordan Whittington, 6 receptions for 62 yards. Colby Parkinson got involved a little bit, 4 receptions, 33 yards. So, Matthew was spreading the ball around, right, to the receivers. But the heart of this game, it was so obvious to everybody watching, as we were having success on the ground. And I cannot understand for the life of me why, when we were getting into the red zone, why Sean McVay did not just absolutely pound the rock. It's almost so simple that it's mind-boggling, because it's like, why would you take the ball out of the hands of the guy who is just like a red zone winner? I mean, Kyren does very well historically in the red zone. He has all but one of your touchdowns on the entire year. Why are you not giving it to him? Why are you using him to get all the way down the field? Then you get in the red zone, you don't want to run the ball. Listen, I think the Bears defense is very good. I talked about it when we previewed this game. I think they're a top 5 defense in this league. I think they're very underrated. I thought they looked, relatively good against the Rams, but the Rams, were able to kind of maneuver their way around the defense for the most part. And in the run game, there was a lot of running plays that the Bears seemed to break down, and Kyren was gaining positive yards. So I don't understand what McVay is thinking. I mean, I cannot accept the fact that, is he just that addicted to calling these little, low percentage passing plays in the red zone that aren't working? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I know you touched on it too. I think that for me, at the end of the day, it was the Achilles heel for the Rams. You have to score. Obviously, to win, you have to score, and they just could not figure it out in the red zone. I didn't think Stafford looked great in the red zone either. I don't think the play calling was helping him. I thought he had kind of an uncharacteristically bad day when he got to the red zone, and even more reason to run the ball, right? I mean, you figure that out early on, from what we were seeing from him, run the ball. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any final thoughts on the offense, but, if everybody keeps asking me what went wrong. To me, the number one thing that comes to mind is the red zone play calling. I thought this is the worst red zone play calling performance I think I've seen from Sean McVay in a really long time. And a lot of that, I think, has to do just with the success that we were seeing in the run game the rest of the game. It would be different if the Rams had been trying to run the ball the entire game and weren't having any success, right? If Kyren was not able to get anything done the whole game, then sure, maybe I can understand, okay, you get to the red zone and you think the run game's not going to work for you. But it was working for you. Kyren looked great. He was making things happen. The offensive line could have helped him out a little more, but they certainly had times where I thought that they did a very good job blocking for him. I don't know, Jake. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that, but I think, to me, if we're going to talk about what went wrong offensively, it is definitely lack of execution in the red zone, particularly not running the ball in the red zone.
This game was almost carbon copy the game at SoFi last year. I think it was week 7 against the Steelers. I was watching that game thinking they're going to lose this game, and I don't know how. I really don't. That game was so frustrating because I know they didn't have Kyren for that game, and if they had Kyren, that game would not have been close. The Steelers were not that good. They just weren't. And I know they had guys up front. Obviously TJ Watt, so forth, and, Fitzpatrick, and I get that. But what I saw in that game was a team that, as great as their defense was, they just let the Rams go all over the field. Puka Nacua had 154 yards in that game. Like, they had no answer for Nacua. The Rams averaged 4.4 yards per carry. They ran the ball 31 times in that game and found a way to lose. Now, that's the reason why it's not a carbon copy, because the Rams ran 26 times in this game, but only 19 of those Kyren took. And there wasn't one guy that kind of specifically went off for the Rams receiving wise, but right around the same. Stafford threw for 231. A touchdown, interception against the Steelers in this game. He didn't get the touchdown, 224 and an interception. It's really frustrating because it feels like these are always on the schedule, where you look at the Steelers game. And I think at this point, going into that game against the Steelers, I think a lot of people felt like the Steelers were a solid football team that had a really, really good defense and could be a problem. But they looked at Kenny Pickett and they're like, there's no way that the Rams are going to lose to Kenny Pickett. And then he went into SoFi Stadium and had a fourth quarter to remember for himself. Now, Caleb Williams did not have that, but he did enough to win the game at the end of the day. So incredibly frustrating. These are littered in Sean McVay's career. There are not a ton of them, but they're every single year. It seems like the Rams have a game where you're like, how did they lose that? I mean, the Steelers game to me is what this reminds me of. I think you go back to 2022 and they had a lot of these games, but I think it was understandable because, like, the Tampa Bay game, you're like, how did they lose that game? In Tampa Bay, they lose 16-13. They outplayed them almost the entire time, right? It was 13-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then they just didn't do anything. And it's incredibly frustrating, but this stuff just happens with Sean McVay's teams. It has happened. The Seattle game with John Wolford, 27-23, they lose in week 13 of 2022. You go back to 2021. I mean, where did the Arizona game come from? That game started out okay in week 4, and then Arizona, after the Rams went up 10-7, Arizona goes on an absolute run, ends up winning the game 37-20. My point here, and I could go on and on and on, these games happen. And I think a lot of them come back to the fact that Sean McVay has some issues. And the biggest issue of them all is the red zone. To be fair, every head coach has an Achilles heel in some capacity. Sean McVay's is red zone play calling. He was in the bottom of the league his last year in Washington as the OC. Okay. The Rams Super Bowl team, both Super Bowl teams, the one that won and the one that got there, neither were in the top 15 in red zone touchdown efficiency for the year. So they've overcome this, and they can, but the problem is they've overcome it when they've been healthy. When they're hurt, when they're playing without these guys, they have to find ways to punch it in. And you might not want Kyren Williams to have all of your touchdowns just because it doesn't look great disparity-wise, but you don't have a choice. You just don't. There's no choice right now. They can't stop Kyren Williams when you get in the red zone. We've seen it. They could not stop him. I don't think Green Bay is going to do a great job of that either. And so I think you need to punch, you really need to, run the football, punch it in. Green Bay this weekend, they are 24th in the league in passing yards allowed per game. Okay. So, that's not great. The Rams are 21st right now. So, that's the thing, is that I think this is an opportunity this weekend to get back on the high side. This is not necessarily the Packers teams that we've seen in the past. I think they can be. I think the Packers can be a great football team. But right now, I don't think they're that right now. And so I think this is an opportunity the Rams are getting in week 5. They're about the same team. They're a team that should be, at the end of the season, they should be playing in an NFC title game or NFC divisional round. They're a little banged up. They've had some unfortunate luck with the injuries, especially the Jordan Love thing going down early on. But they also found a way to win some of those games with Malik Willis. I guess really my point is neither of these teams have really hit their stride yet. So this is an opportunity for both sides, but really an opportunity for the Rams. And you see that Vikings game, and keep in mind, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, they know each other very well. LaFleur has bullied Sean McVay. He is 4-0 against Sean McVay, and now he's facing his brother again, Mike LaFleur. We'll see how it goes down, but this is it. I am very I'm an optimist at heart, or at least I believe I am. And sometimes people confuse that with homerism. I just like to see the good instead of just immediately going to the bad, but I'll give you the bad too. It's more so like, do you want the good news or the bad news? I'll start with the good. But Alexis, I'll tell you this right now. Even me, I would say if they go 1-4, it's going to be really tough to get out of that hole. I think they have to win this weekend against Green Bay. They really have left it with no choice. And even saying that, I just cannot believe our reality is that they lost to the Bears. I thought the Bears would be a playoff team this year, Alexis. I truly did. Coming into the season, I had them win 10 games. I had them getting the 7th seed. But what I've seen has not impressed me. Those weapons and everything, there's just no excuse. There is zero excuse to be 1-3 right now. They should have beat the Lions week 1. They shouldn't have got run out of the gym by the Cardinals, but hey, it is what it is. The 49er game, everything that you needed to have happen went your way. And then the letdown in Chicago. You let people like Alexis down. I know there were people that flew out to Chicago and went on, long road trips and everything. It's a real frustrating thing right now. And there are guys that are pulling their weight, but there are guys that aren't. And so the guys that aren't, well, when you're 1-3, I think it's okay and it's fair to make maybe some drastic changes.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on the defense. But before we touch on the defense, I want to go back to kind of the Kyren Williams thing because, a lot of discourse so far, in the season about Kyren Williams and why is Blake Corum not playing, and Kyren's going to get hurt if we keep using him. Here's the thing: I actually don't disagree with that entirely because the amount that we're using Kyren Williams is insane. Okay, I acknowledge that. Can he do it? Yes, he's talented enough to do it. But you have to do it. So I almost think the conversation at this point is a little bit pointless. Oh, why do we keep putting Kyren? Well, we're putting Kyren Williams out there because it's working and he's the only one that can do that on the team. Him and Ronnie Rivers are the only 2 running backs on the roster who can provide adequate pass protection. Really, it's Kyren. He is another level above in pass pro than the other 2 running backs on the team. Blake Corum, guys, is not going to see the field probably for a while. He's just not. Okay, there's a lot of different reasons for that. I don't necessarily think it's a knock on Blake Corum. I think he's got a lot to learn. He's a rookie. He also cannot do in pass pro what Kyren Williams can do, and he cannot do what Ronnie Rivers can also do in pass pro. Ronnie Rivers is actually pretty underrated. It's pretty good pass protecting running back, and he's gotten better. So, I think that the discourse around this kind of, I understand it because, again, it would be really nice if we would have used that 3rd round pick on a linebacker. Jake, can't lie, it would have been really nice if we had used it maybe on a corner, but we didn't. For whatever reason, we didn't. We used it on a guy that the Rams do not either want to play right now or don't feel is ready to play right now, and that's just the reality of the situation. I think the positive way to spin this, guys, is that Kyren Williams, especially with Kupp and Nacua being out, he's the offense. Him and number 9 are the offense. And number 9 didn't have his best game against the Bears. He just didn't. So it was Kyren Williams' show. And that makes it more of a shame that they did not give him the ball more in the red zone because he would have scored. We've talked about it. He is a red zone threat. He is not able to be stopped most often in the red zone. And the Rams didn't get it. Sean McVay just didn't want to execute for whatever reason. So it's unfortunate. But I do think we should talk about the defense. Because Jake, like we talked about, this Bears offense didn't look good. Caleb Williams hasn't really looked good this entire season, but he particularly didn't look good against the Rams. Our defense just looked that bad. DeAndre Swift has been, I don't want to use the word hated on, but the Bears fans have not been super psyched about what DeAndre Swift has done so far this season. Again, I am around Bears fans every single day of my life. I know what is going on internally. When I was at the game, I was sitting in a section full of Bears fans, and immediately as the game started, they were all not happy when DeAndre Swift was touching the ball. DeAndre Swift,
he's the only reason they won.
Yeah, and he's the only reason they won. But he didn't have a good first few handoffs. And the whole section, again, people have not been high on DeAndre Swift. They were very upset that he was touching the ball. And look at what this Rams defense made DeAndre Swift look like. Look at what DeAndre Swift did against this defense. That should indicate to everybody the state of where this Rams defense is right now. Listen, there's a lot of positives about this defense, and Jake and I will break that down. But they did not look good, theoretically, against this Bears offense, and it's a shame because I don't think that the Bears did enough to really warrant like an incredible game. Caleb Williams, 157 yards, 1 touchdown. DeAndre Swift, you look on the ground, he had 16 carries for 93 yards. Pretty solid day. He had 7 receptions for 72 yards. This was a DeAndre Swift game. This a guy who has done nothing virtually the entire season looks like a superstar against this Rams defense. It's infuriating. A lot of people, and Jake, let's start off by talking about this. Let's talk about Jared Verse first, because a lot of people are upset at Jared Verse because he's not finishing tackles, and I actually understand it. I understand why people are upset. I'm a big Jared Verse fan. I have not abandoned Jared Verse, nor will I. I think it's ridiculous. We're 4 games in his rookie season. He was my pick, as everybody knows, for the Rams to take in the first round this year. So I know that when I'm praising Jared Verse, people think that I just have some type of allegiance to him. But Jake, as you and I have talked about, and some stats that you read earlier, he's doing a lot better than any other defender not named Aiden Hutchinson right now. Because pressures matter. And I know everyone's frustrated because they're saying pressures don't matter. He's not getting the sacks. But I'll let you...
Don't get me started on the pressures don't matter. Well, do you win a Super Bowl without the pressure there and Donald had? Do you win the NFC title game? Jimmy Garoppolo, where'd that play come from? A pressure. Oh, by the way, remember the NFC title game where like Dante Fowler Jr. had the spin move and then had the pressure on Breeze, which caused the interception to John Johnson? Pressure. Oh, remember the wild card game against Cardinals when Kyler Murray just threw it up? Yeah, that was because of pressure, and they had the walk-in pick 6. Oh, how about the pick 6 against the Seattle Seahawks in the wild card game 2020? Pressure. 2018. I'll stop. But 2018, Patrick Mahomes. Remember that game? How like 54-51? The pressure forced him to throw an interception to, I believe that was LaMarcus Joyner. I might be wrong. Point I'm making here is that pressure does effing matter. I'm so tired of hearing that because you same people who are saying pressure doesn't matter are the people that use pressures to openly go at people, mainly Steelers fans and Browns fans, about why Aaron Donald deserved Defensive Player of the Year over TJ Watt, sometimes JJ Watt, and Myles Garrett. I'm not dumb. I wasn't born yesterday. I remember seeing all those graphics and you said pressures. Well, you can't just say it mattered then and it doesn't matter anymore. And I don't understand why I have to die on the hill of defending the first round pick that the Rams have had since 2016. It's freaking wild. Wild. It's why I made that video, which I'm as pissed off in that video as I am right now, even talking about it. But in that video, you actually are able to see actual film. So I showed you the film. People are always saying, oh, well, the eye test. Well, the eye test doesn't matter if you don't have the eyes. If you don't know what you're watching, I don't care what you're seeing, okay? The point I'm making here is that I've watched Jared Verse kick ass up front. He won 50% of his reps. People will now say, oh, that's because it's Braxton Jones. I don't give a rip. He was winning reps against Trent Williams. He was winning reps against Taylor Decker. Are you kidding me? I could go on. But the point I'm making is that Jared Verse is kicking ass up front on a way that he's actually doing it better than anybody else on the defensive line. And he's getting punished for it, Alexis, because he's arriving first at the quarterback and he's owned the guy before anybody else has actually won their matchup. Now he's penalized because he has to finish. So because he got there quicker than everyone else, and I mean no disrespect when I say this, but Kobe Turner's still engaged with his block, and Braden Fisk is engaged with his, and Byron Young is engaged with his. Now it's Jared Verse's fault he didn't finish. But when Aaron Donald did that, no one batted an eye. They're like, oh, well, people need to clean up for Aaron Donald. You can't have it both ways. It's absolutely not fair. And I'm well aware Jared Verse has had more missed tackles in his 4 games than Aaron Donald had his entire career. I'm not trying to say Aaron Donald deserves any discredit, but I'm just saying, I'm watching Jared Verse, not right now, I'm recording with you, but I was watching twice. I rewatched that game. No idea why. But Alexis, Jared Verse has the potential to be not one of the best, be the best pass rusher in football. And I'm not even saying he has this decorated arsenal of maneuvers. He does really, for the most part, he wins with his bull rush. He just absolutely knocks you the F back. He knocks you on your ass. And sometimes that's good enough. Now, over the course of his career, he's going to learn other moves and he's going to get better. And guess what? Time is going to slow down for him in the NFL, and he's going to actually make these tackles and make these sacks. But what we've seen in 4 games, the last thing I'm doing, he's like one of the only things that I'm like, wow, they're 1-3, but at least we have Jared Verse for the next 5 years. Are you kidding me? That's the guy you're going to go after? Miss me with that.
Oh, I totally agree. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And listen, like I mentioned earlier, I understand being frustrated at the missed tackles, but as you elaborated, he's getting there first and he's winning. He will put it all together and it will happen. Guys, he's 4 games into his rookie season. And if you're watching this defense and you think that Jared Verse is the problem when he's one of the few bright spots, you're insane. I'm just telling you, you're insane.
Remember
If
we talked about this last week about it was Justin Fields, the analogy I had? And I was like, people were saying he's overthrowing everyone. And I was like, it's okay.
Yeah,
That means
yeah. Well, right. At least Jared can get there. To your point, it is exact. If Jared Verse wasn't getting there, that would be the problem. That's the problem. He will figure out a way to finish on those tackles, but also again, there is nobody cleaning up for him. Often it's not that rare, guys, in football that the first person to the quarterback gets the sack as well. That is actually probably, I don't want to make up a stat, but it's not super uncommon for the first person to the quarterback to not be the guy that ends up getting the sack. So I think everybody is just taking out their frustration because this defense has so many holes and they aren't executing. And maybe Jared Verse is an easy target, right? He's the first round pick and he is having those missed tackles and he's getting there first and people are punishing him for it. But you and I are not standing for it. I think anybody with common football knowledge is not going to stand for it. And it's going to get better, but it's still not going to fix everything if this defense doesn't fix things all around. If the linebackers don't step up, if the defensive line doesn't meet Jared at the quarterback, right? There are all these things that have to go differently in order for everything to start working. You know who also had a good game? Braden Fisk. Braden Fisk was a guy that after his debut against the Lions, I had to listen to Rams fans say that Braden Fisk was a waste of they couldn't understand why we traded up for him, that he was horrible. The first 2 games against the Lions and the Cardinals, everybody was out for some reason on Braden Fisk. People were so furious at Braden Fisk. Well, he's gotten better each game. He had a very good game. He had a sack yesterday. Jared Verse, by the way, had 2 sacks called back because of penalties yesterday. Nobody wants to bring that up. So that was unfair. I'm not disagreeing with the calls, but again, he had the sacks, right? They just were called back.
Yeah.
So, I just think I understand the frustration because trust me, I am on the same page. This defense is not playing up to par. They are not. This defense looks pretty bad. I understand that. But at the same time, I think that everybody's frustrations are going to the wrong place. Now, we want to talk about the linebackers? Sure, absolutely. The middle of the defense, absolutely horrendous. Is the secondary having too many lapses in coverage? Yes. Is Trey White playing well? Absolutely not. So there are things that we can talk about, but for everybody who is taking out their frustration on Jared Verse and Braden Fisk or, the defensive front, I think that it's misguided. Not that those guys don't have things they could be doing better, but it's very misguided, and I would encourage everybody to go rewatch the game and particularly watch every snap Jared Verse takes. And again, yes, I would love to see him close out in some of those tackles. I would also like to see people clean up. I would also like to see other people getting to the quarterback, and I would also like to see our linebackers do something. So Jake, let's talk about that. Let's work our way back for this defense. So we just talked about what's going on up front and how there's some frustrations there. But what do you think is going on with this linebacking core? Because I'll tell you what, not only do they look bad on film, they looked awful in person. Again, just a travesty what happened against the Bears. But Jake, what's going on there?
Well, they're just not getting enough depth when they drop back in coverage. And that is leading to, even quarterbacks like Caleb Williams that are struggling and, are almost petrified to throw the football down the field. Even he was able to layer it over I think it was Roseboom again I think it was Reader for that 22-yard play to Komet. So I feel like that is the first issue, is they're not getting enough drop, in their coverages. And that is a big deal. But another thing I have is just the disengaging from blocks. I mean, Troy Reader's had some great gap fills, but I've seen a lot on film where he just gets gobbled up. Like when you talk about grip strength, and I'm not talking about holding, I mean, when he's at the point of attack, when he's going up against a tight end or an offensive lineman, he's gone. Like he's gone. He's in a black hole. He's swallowed. He's not going to be able to make that play. I like Troy Reader, but I also understand Troy Reader is a backup. Okay. I was encouraged, like I've always said, I can't believe I have to defend myself, but I was encouraged with Troy Reader and Christian Roseboom week 1. They have not been the same players that I watched week 1. It's that simple. You can go back and you can watch the Lions game yourself. Up until overtime, they looked outstanding. They were great. They were quick to the ball. Troy Reader looked faster than I've ever seen him. And then after week 1, he has not been the same. So really, I think at some point or another, Chris Shula has to take some blame here, because they're getting, pressure up front. And that's another thing I laugh at, is that I think there are people that have been saying, oh, we need Eric Henderson. Well, with all due respect to Eric Henderson, great defensive line coach and everything, what is Jeff Smith not doing? Like, I'm sorry, what is he not doing? I have the numbers. I really want people to realize, because I'm not just going to say a bunch of BS. I'm going to come to the table with my numbers, because while people are complaining on Twitter about what they did on Sunday, I'm actually researching this shit. I want to know. I want to come prepared. So with these numbers here, Alexis, defensive line pressures in 2024 compared to other years. Okay. This is per PFF, and this is only defensive line. Why did I go this route? Because they're not really blitzing that much. This is just showing what they do up front, man to man, right? So going back, we'll just start at 2006. Okay. 52. This is just defensive line, no blitzing. 44 in 2007, 27 in 08, 35 in 09, 67 in 2010, 59 in 2011, 46 in 2012. 2013 was the last year until Aaron Donald came to the fray. They had 54 pressures at the defensive line. They had 34. To be fair, this is through the first 4 games of a season. Aaron Donald did not play until week 5. So the 2014, with Aaron Donald, they only had 34, but he only played, I think, a little bit. 2015, they had 56. 2016, they had 65. 2017, they had 54. 2018 was special. They had 81. Big reason, Ndamukong Suh. 2019, they had 75. 2020, they had 78. 2021, they had 70. 2022, they had 34. 2023, which was last year, they had 60. And this year, they have 65. Why am I making such a big deal? That's without Aaron Donald. They have 65 pressures without Aaron Donald. They had 60 with Aaron Donald last year. So these guys are doing their job up front. They are. They absolutely are. And it just irks me how you have people on there that are like, Verse sucks and Braden Fisk sucks. And I've seen it from people that I actually normally agree with, or I really like their football acumen. I understand losing and just the anger that goes with NFL Sundays can lead you down a path of maybe just being ignorant or just, being impulsive maybe, but we have to be honest with ourselves. There are some good things to take away from this. They're winning up front. This isn't an Eric Henderson's gone thing, and this isn't even an Aaron Donald's gone thing. Aaron Donald would help. Make no mistake about it. And they need Aaron Donald in a sense because Donald would finish more. Like, that's why I'm so impressed with Jared Verse, though, because no Aaron Donald means that these matchups can be double teams. These matchups, now he's going to be the focal point moving forward. Teams are going to be moving away from Kobe Turner because Turner's good and he hasn't disappeared like people on Twitter are saying. He had 7 pressures last game, but I understand the frustration. Kobe Turner didn't take the next step like people were expecting. Well, maybe he's as good as he is, and being next to Aaron Donald made his job a little bit easier. It doesn't mean he's a bad player, but I mean, being next to Aaron Donald helps. So what I'm saying is that a guy like Jared Verse or a guy like Byron Young or whatever, this year having to make more work without having that guy that commands double and triple teams, well, we're seeing for sure who they are, and they're good football players. And so, Alexis, I think the defensive line's fine. Just work with it over time. They'll figure it out. I would prefer Bobby Brown play more, in the middle because I think he's by far your best run defender, and they have him playing almost lining up to the shoulder of the left tackle like most plays, which I was surprised. They made that decision last week to move him there. I think he could really help in the run game if they moved him more in the middle. Another thing that could help the run game is, in my opinion, bringing up, a Quentin Lake to the linebacker spot, because I think Lake right now, he's on pace for 157 tackles. Tackling is not an issue with Quentin Lake at all. Asking him to go in, one-on-one ISOs, having to cover guys like DJ Moore, who are incredibly athletic, that's a little unfair. But that's kind of the thing he has to do, playing that star role. So I'd like him to just full on make him a linebacker right now, truthfully, and then give Spates a shot. I thought you saw some really good short area quickness from Spates on tape going back to preseason. And Jake Hummel, I swear by this. Watching these guys, I understand he hasn't played much in the regular season, but Jake Hummel is their best coverage linebacker on the roster. I don't think it's remotely close. This guy just gets it. He gets depth out there. He's a great athlete. He's had some really athletic picks going back to even, the preseason last year, made almost like a Jordan jump man type of pick. But this is my point, is that I think they have up front, they have what they need. Then corner, they're going to be getting Darius Williams back soon. I don't think they'll bring him back this week. I don't. Could be wrong, but I think you give him the extra week. Mind you, he got hurt coming back too soon from an injury that he re-aggravated. So I think it's best to give him this week and the bye. So they'll have him coming back. They have Akella Witherspoon, who could be activated, I believe, 3 more times from the practice squad without having to place him on the 53. He looked really good in those 9 snaps, and that's the thing. I think the secondary can be fixed. They miss John Johnson. I'm going to say this right now. If you're going to throw shade at Jared Verse, I'm going to have to say something here that people aren't going to like. Cameron Kinchens is not at all ready to be playing in the NFL on a regular basis. He's just not. The game is way too fast for him right now. And I think a lot of people, they got excited. Maybe I'm guilty of this too. They got excited with the potential of the ball hawking ability, had 11 interceptions at Miami U. But I think what that does, though, is kind of, lets you ignore the other things. And the other things were, he wasn't great angle-wise. He didn't take great angles. He missed a lot of tackles. And we've seen, I got on him last week, but we have to be honest with ourselves. If there's a rookie that needs to be somewhat criticized, it is Cameron Kinchens. I understand he's taking on a huge role, but you could argue, where's Russ East? Why did they cut Russ East when clearly he was a better safety right now than Kinchens is? Why aren't they giving, like, Jalen McCullough has gotten some opportunities. I'd like to see McCullough get more opportunities than Kinchens. I'd like to see them try maybe even going outside the organization. It's just not really acceptable. They just cut Jason Taylor II, like never even explained why. He's just gone. There are guys that I would rather see. Knowing Kinchens right now, the game is too fast. So I think there are some things that the Rams have going for them on the defensive side. And I think there are things that are just obvious. This is why you're struggling in the run game. They took Bobby Brown out of the middle. Bobby Brown plugs up holes. You have two linebackers that are replacement level players. I'm just being honest with you. I'm encouraged by plays that they make, but everybody in the NFL can make a splash play here and there. That's nothing new. Consistency is a big thing. And then I think at the cornerback spot, Ahkello Witherspoon's clearly the best cornerback on the roster. I mean, you could make the argument Darius Williams for sure. But aside from Williams, who currently isn't on the 53-man roster, he's on the IL or the IR, excuse me, my baseball terminology is coming out. Ahkello is clearly the best one that's available right now. So he needs to be starting, period. If you're going to have him out there and you're going to leave him on an island and you're telling me you trust him without any safety help, I don't know why he's not playing more. So there's those things. And then the safety room, Alexis, they got a really good safety in Cameron Curl, who I know is capable of more than he's showing. And they have other guys that I think that they can, utilize. Cameron Kinchins, I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. He's got a lot in his arsenal, but right now the game is too fast for him. It's that simple, full stop. So a lot of people are saying this defense is trash. It's done. It's over. There are plenty of defenses in the past that made adjustments and have gotten better. And I would go as far as to say the Super Bowl defense. I didn't think the Super Bowl defense was that great, and they got a lot better over the course of the year. I understand they added Von Miller. I'm well aware of that. And they had some other pieces, but that defense didn't start off great. I think a lot of people forget the defense that we saw in the Super Bowl versus the defense we saw in week 4 were much different. So it's a long season. 1-3 doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room, but as long as they can take care of business this weekend against the Packers and just slowly but surely figure this thing out while they wait for guys to come back, that early bye week is going to be a savior for them as long as they get a win and go into the bye week with some momentum. If they lose this game, it's going to be really hard to dig themselves out of it. But to kind of wrap up my point here, the defense has a lot going for it, Alexis. They do. They have a lot to like. And there are guys on the roster that I think could really make an impact that they just need to realize, look, 1-3 is not going to cut it. It might be hard to do because you like these guys and you told everyone like, hey, Ernest Jones, this is the best thing for a football team. You don't want to look stupid. Well, I don't think you look stupid if you put in a UDFA and Omar Spates and he goes out there and balls out. But how will you know unless you do it? And so I'm hoping that they make some of those decisions and they do it soon because they are running out of time.
Yeah, it's certainly something to watch out for. And yeah, I mean, I just think whatever it was on Sunday was not acceptable. I mean, absolutely, if the Rams play like that the rest of the season, they might lose every game. I'm not kidding. That defense should not have looked like that against a Bears offense that, has been struggling, against DeAndre Swift, who has not done anything the entire season, against a rookie quarterback that's really struggled to figure it out. It just shouldn't have happened. So I think they do maybe need to make some drastic changes to the linebacking core, like you said. Maybe play around with where they put Quentin Lake and see if you can get any type of positive momentum going in any type of direction. Because you are having it up front. You are having it, to an extent with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and what they're doing, but it's not enough. It's not going to win them games at this rate. And, you pair that with the offense that is kind of just managing to get by and is suffering because of some of the play calling from their coach and McVay and not making the best decisions there. It's a bad recipe and it's not one for success. And I think we all can see that. So I'm very curious how the Rams adjust going into this game against the Packers, because like you've said, this is, I think, arguably, it sounds intense, but the season. You go into the bye 1-4. It is very hard to come out of that. It is very hard to catch up to other teams in the NFC that might have had a better start to the season, and then your bye's over. So, it's unfortunate that the Rams are in this spot, because I really think that, 2 of the losses we've had this season should have been wins. I think we should have won the game against Detroit, and we definitely should have won the game against Chicago. And now we're facing another NFC North team. So I hope we get the W against this one, next Sunday. But Jake and I will be back to talk about that on Friday night. And I want to apologize, by the way, guys, that this episode is a day late. It's my fault. I got a flat tire on my way home from work, as all of you who follow me on Twitter know. Yesterday we were supposed to record, and I got a flat tire on a highway in Chicago and sat there for 2.5 hours till someone could get to me and could put my spare tire on for me because embarrassingly I don't know how to change a tire. I probably should. Maybe it's something I'll look into, after yesterday because that was a nightmare. But
Yeah, it's
yes,
all your fault that you got a
it,
random flat tire on
it
the
is.
highway, and yeah,
It was
whatever.
so bizarre because I was in bumper to bumper traffic and I just did not, I guess something sharp was on the road, went right into my tire, and my tire pressure just went on and it went down all the way to one. And I could hear the air violently coming out of my tire. It was insane.
Villain
First
origin
time
story.
yeah, it really was my villain origin story. I've been driving for 12 years now. I think my math is correct, since I've been 16, and this is the first time I've ever gotten a flat tire. But yeah, so that my bad, guys. I apologize. This is a day late. I know everybody probably really wanted to hear the day after the game while it was still fresh in everybody's mind. But that's how it goes. But yeah,
Yeah,
again, thank you to everybody who was so kind to me this weekend, who was at the game, all of you who I met at the game and at the meetup at the game room. Um, it was a great weekend. And before the game was fun. I did get to catch a ball from Kyren Williams.
that's cool.
Um, that was fun. I put my phone down. I have video of moments of before, but I put my phone down. But I pointed out my Kyren jersey, which he noticed, and he threw me the ball, and I dropped it. But it's okay.
You didn't
It
have to say that. There's
ricocheted.
no video evidence.
No, but I want to be honest about it because it's a little
That's fair.
disingenuous if I'm like, I caught a pass from Kyren. No, I got a pass thrown to me from Kyren, and I did put my phone down, but I had it in my hand and it went right into my phone and it ricocheted behind me to Dakota who caught it. But I threw it back to Kyren and I threw it back to him left-handed and I threw it when I'm not left-handed. But again, I had stuff I was holding in my
Ah,
right hand, and I threw it back left-handed, and it went right to him. And so I was actually very impressed by that,
yeah.
because I'm not left-handed. But
Was
but
that
anyways, that was a cool.
ambidextrous? Like,
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
maybe I am, and I don't know it. Yeah. So there was a lot of really fun moments. Was the point?
yeah.
Until the game. Until the game, which was, I guess shout out to Bears fans. No one really heckled me as I was sitting in the stands watching the Rams embarrass me.
You had some explosive plays, some sacks, a forced fumble, but yeah, I
Yeah,
expected more.
we both expected more. Again, I think this is definitely a game that the Rams have the talent to have won. They just didn't execute on a lot of different fronts, but I'm hoping that turns around as we go play Green Bay on Friday night, guys, and we will be back then. To discuss that. As always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK and we will be back, like I said, Friday night. But until then, as always, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.